Hello, everybody. My name is Emilio, and I'm a mentor. Hello, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Emilio. I'm a mentor on Spectrum 3847. And just so that everybody is aware, this presentation will be recorded. So there is a possibility that the microphone will pick you up, just so that y'all are aware. If you don't want to be recorded, don't speak. But we'll have questions at the end. So who we are, this is Alan.
Hi, everybody. Alan Gregory. I head coach for Spectrum. Been doing FRC for 23 seasons. Yeah, you'll see me around all weekend.
I'm Emilio. I'm an alumni mentor for Spectrum 3847.
I'm Witchery, also an alumni 3847.
Hi, I'm Mary. I'm also alumni mentor of 3847.
Yeah. So our abstract is just that by posting all of our resources and our experiences, not only does it help other teams, but it also fosters a culture of transparency and continuous improvement within our team, which allows us to be better than we would without the build blog. This is kind of just a table of contents for what we're going to look into. So go through like the origins, why it matters, showcasing like our success, learning from challenges, and then going more into specifics about like what exactly in the build blog process helps us as a team, and then some tips and tricks, and then questions at the end.
Okay, so brief history of Spectrum. When I graduated college, I was working with the team DiscoBots for about a year. I had a friend at a school, and they were looking for a new person to come in and kind of help run their robotics team. And so I joined the team in 2011, 2012, kind of just with the plan of being a technical mentor, help with electrical software and things. There were some other teachers. Very quickly, it turned into, hey, you're running this and we're not going to be there. And so it was like, okay, cool. I'm 22. How do I do this now? That's fun. And with the way the program worked, we knew it was kind of we'll have kids in there, we'll figure out what's going on right after school. We didn't have, it's a private school, so there's kids coming in from all over, so we couldn't have like later meetings to have other engineers and things come in. So we're just trying to figure out how to do it and communicate and everything. And luckily, right after the 2011 season, a couple people in our community, Jim Zondag from 33 and JVN, who was on 148 at the time, both had released documents for their build blog. So after the season, they had published just kind of like their journals through the season of how their robot development, how their teams and things run. And so I was like, why don't we just do this live during the season, mostly as a communication tool for our students who couldn't be there at each meeting and for their parents and things, so they could follow along. If you miss a meeting, there's always a nice little recap of what we were doing. And we were just doing it on a Blogger site. Linked it on Chief, thought, whatever, but I don't think hardly anybody really saw it in 2012 when we were doing it, but it was really that internal tool of allowing our team communication to work. We just had this running journal of what we did every day so that parents could see pictures of the progress, knew what the robots were, all of that kind of stuff. But as we did it the next year, our first year, we were not very good. The program was building something, but the robot wasn't very good. That 2013, though, is when we really started figuring out that it was more than just an internal tool and it could really be beneficial for the rest of the community. As about day 11 of the season, we posted this video that if any of you were around back in 2013, stirred up some stuff in the community because we were basically able to figure out how to put some of those smaller motors into the Versa Planetary that had just been released, one-to-one with some other COT stuff. And you could basically build a functional shooter for that game to launch Frisbees with about $200 worth of stuff and an hour. And it could package into basically any robot that you already had started sketching up. Really wasn't, the community is not anywhere close to what it is. Something like this was nowhere in the vision of anybody back even in 2013. But we started getting comments on Chief of being like, hey, this is cool. I got an email from Adam Freeman at HOT at the time, HOT being one of the top 5-10 robots in the world every year back then. And so those are the things where it's like, oh, this is way more than just helping our team. We're getting that feedback and we're getting that stuff that's saying, hey, yeah, you guys are onto something pretty cool. It's helpful. We were getting tips on how to do it. Other teams were doing the same thing and providing us some feedback as we went. And then we basically were able to start getting it to where we could have more of our stuff easily published. People started following the blog a lot more, started communicating with us a lot more about it. We were getting it more on Sheaf. And we were able to keep running the sort of blog thing, getting more of our resources published at the same time. And it helps it continually to be an internal tool because the students kind of know, hey, we need to be documenting our stuff because it's going on the blog. Other people are following along. They're getting comments at events talking about how nice it is. And that's kind of just the foundation of it. Was really, it started as not something for a service for the community, but more as a service for us. And then it just became this thing that grew and grew and grew for everybody else.
Yeah, eventually it became into the Open Alliance. And so all of that just kind of grew into an entire like group of teams that now do it. It's pretty cool.
So we really liked the build blog because it kept all the students really up to date with the robot, and it made them like, we realized that every single year we could see the progress that we did the previous year. We're like, oh, what are we doing this year? How does it align to what we did last year? And we can kind of compare our kind of the rate that we're going at, and all the students could just keep up to date, just like we said before. And it was really important in within the local community because like, it's just sharing with the local school administrators. We had to keep the school interested in what we were doing, giving them a reason to keep giving us money, giving a reason to like keep supporting us, because the school support was a lot of how our students were able to go to competitions, how we were supposed to get funding, how we were able to get just our space in general. And then we used the build blog to keep the parents in the loop, because a lot of times the parents are like, what is my kid doing? He's not telling me what they're doing at this program. And we'd be like, okay, you can look at the build blog, and they could see actual results. Like, this is what my student did today. They did the prototypes. They were learning all these engineering things. And they're like, we should keep bringing our child to the meetings. And then we used it. It was another tool for sponsors to see that we were making actual results with what we were doing. And it just helped us to get more sponsors and help fund the team.
Yeah, within FRC, the benefits of having a build blog are like just the feedback that you get from the community. Alan touched on it a little bit. We'll touch on it later. But just that culture of like somebody just commenting, asking a question, testing it and realizing that, or seeing other people experiment with the same things and having different results. All of that kind of is also one of the benefits for doing a build blog within FRC as a whole. It also raises the floor for other teams. Like there's definitely a bunch of teams, especially in Texas, like that we see often, that are very thankful for like the things we post. And like there's some resources that we made 4 years ago that they'll go in as like, oh, don't read that, please. That like, don't read WPI Guide 2020, please. But then yeah, like all these different guides, they'll be thankful for it, or they are thankful for it. So that's pretty cool seeing all these different teams impacted by the work that we're doing. And then I guess one of the biggest things that I've heard people say is like being world class in open source, like seem to clash against each other, or a lot of people think they do, but they aren't necessarily diverging goals. There's not really a reason that they clash against each other. There's a lot of ways to be world class and open source that still accomplish the goals that you want to achieve.
Another great part about our build blog is our ability to showcase any of our successes throughout the season, highlight achievements for students, the community, everything as a whole. It's really great being able to, share what our students have accomplished with everyone, all of our supporters. It's also a good source of accountability. So highlighting our failures, what we do to fix them, what we can do to make sure that it doesn't happen again, and being able to reference that in the future is always a huge help going season after season, making sure that we learn from what we've done in the past.
So going more into the feedback loop and dealing with copycats, sounds very antagonistic. So for feedback, one of the greatest things is like getting actual engineers to read through it and do like just comment on things and go on tangents and whatnot. It's pretty cool to see. Here are just 2 examples that I pulled up in 5 minutes from last year's build blog. But like Brandon from 125, we've been using, we use things that like he just says, like the Plastlight screws and our rollers, like they just held them together, which is pretty cool. And whatnot. There's been many examples over the years of things that we wouldn't have gotten without the build blog, just because lack of oversight or even just like lack of time. And so expanding the network of engineers to instead of just being within the 4 technical mentors of the team and having it be the 400 mentors that read the build blog and whatnot is also very good.
Yeah. So for prior to basically like 2020, the vast majority of everything that was happening on Spectrum was basically myself and the 25 to 30 students we had every year. And so one of the reasons that the build blog was really beneficial for that was I was able to put out what we were doing. And a lot of it was through Chief and things or through like group chat and stuff, but others were just straight emails or on Facebook. And somebody we've had, people that I'd never met before DM me or Facebook message and be like, hey, we just prototyped this thing and it worked a little bit better this way. We did some version of yours. And so we were able to get so much feedback from around the world of world-class teams. Jared on the Poofs, I distinctly remember one in like 2018 where he's like, this is how we did a thing to spin the cube. And he's like, yeah, you can go ahead and let that out. So like some of the stuff that we put out on our build blog that we get credit for are things that like other people were like, we don't have a blog, but here's what we're doing. And that's fine for other people to like go do. And so we've got like permission from teams to basically post things for things. So they kind of know that's one way that we're able to get some of that feedback. Just because we're open, we're able to see things and talk to people that we never knew before. And you just get that, like, it's very easy to make a friend if you've already solved like dozens of their problems before you ever met them.
Yeah, like the concurrent development is definitely something that is great. Like even especially within the Open Alliance, like this year, I think it was very exceptional. The fact that like 95 and 6328 and us were all looking at different shooter prototypes at the same time and like building off of each other. And so that rapid development, I think, is pretty insane. Like we'd go home, sleep for 8 hours, come back, and 95 would release something, which is like, and so then I assume they'd go home and sleep, and then we take what we learned from what they posted and then do the same thing. So it's like you're iterating like 2-3 times as fast as you would if just everybody were open, or currently the way that people are open. For copycats, this allows really for concurrent development, and it really motivates us to accelerate development. I know when like I saw 581 and 1670, I was like, now we have to actually like compete at a much higher level.
Yeah, the easiest point of that is imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. And the joy that you see in a kid's face when Citrus builds your robot is unbelievable. Like, you don't understand. Like, I don't think we've seen happier kids in my entire life.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then like also talking about different ways we solve different challenges that we face, like in the low level like design of the robot, is pretty cool. Like looking at the different pivot mechanisms, because I think all 3 of them are different on these 3 robots. The way they like power their elevator, the way they did their climber is different on all 3 of them. And so all of that is pretty interesting to see. Oh, y'all made that design decision. Like it's interesting that worked better for y'all than it worked for us. And so all of those things are pretty cool. We've also done it from the other side. So last year in the off season, we built clone of 3538 with a couple of changes to better suit our manufacturing. And the amount that you learn just from like going through and documenting like designing somebody else's robot is ridiculous. Like this season wouldn't have been as successful as it was without doing this. Like just looking as like, oh, they do this, and then realizing that like, oh, we can do that as well. It isn't just like looking at a room and be like, they did something cool. but actually implementing it like solves a lot of issues that you can in the future. Spectrum shows up to a competition with clones that are all better than them. This hasn't happened yet. But one of the things is like this is also motivation for our students, like going out and seeing like, oh, we're posting everything, like everything might be delayed a day, but that also keeps them coming back and keeps them like knowing that, oh, if we just get complacent and stop developing a robot, in a week somebody can just rebuild it and like upload our code and we'll be done and they'll have the same robot. And so it keeps them developing and keeps them have that sense of urgency. And yeah, one of the other things is that everything we do is optimized to our manufacturing methods, that of laser cutting and a lot of COTS parts. But that also means that it is also optimized for a lot of other teams as well, for laser cutting and a lot of COTS parts. But it's always about trying to find ways, more interesting ways to find an edge over somebody with even like the same robot, which is pretty cool. For validation and feedback, like there are many like ways that you can look at somebody else's robot and see like ways that you could have improved differently. But when you go onto a like Chief and then you see Citrus post a picture of your CAD with a bunch of question marks on it, it's like, oh, okay, let's sit down and break this down. And so yeah, so like when somebody else, when Citrus and the Bulldogs build your robot, it really validates your design and is like, okay, we made a right decision. Let's continue, and we can like, we know that any effort we put in isn't just going to be straight lost. Like all of the, there isn't that like feeling in the back of your head like, oh, what if we have to rebuild? Because well, they rebuilt to you, so it's good validation. And then also throughout the season, we can end up copying some things from them and using that feedback loop, not just in the first initial design phase, but also going into and through the building competition season. Here's a list of teams that self-reported where one major mechanism or design choice was inspired by Spectrum. So it's just a list of numbers. It's hard to like quantify. And so here are the list of robot awards that they won this year. And so, yeah, Team Scream said, I don't actually know what they copied. It looks like a very different robot, or what they were inspired by. But it is pretty cool and validating to see that we've been so helpful to the community.
One thing Emilio touched on briefly was kind of closing the feedback loop with other teams just coming to us and talking. We also don't even need them to tell us anything sometimes to find some improvements. Pretty early on the season, our cable chain for our amp elevator went kind of above. It was the highest point on the robot, which meant that if we did anything silly under the stage, it was the part that broke. And just watching the 581 reveal video, we saw, well, we're being stupid. We can just route that under. And so we did it. And it lets us really, really check ourselves and make sure we're doing everything right. And so for our climber this year, we were having a bit of trouble getting our trap to work, getting those last like fractions of an inch. It was so close. To the point where at Belton, we had little modular top parts of our climber to try to get there, and we still couldn't really get it reliable. And so we looked at 148's reveal video and saw, wait a second, they're just climbing straight on chain. Why can't we do that? And so the climber subsystem leads had left for vacation about an hour earlier, and we laser cut a little just silly thing and put a wrench in it to stop it from moving, and it worked. And by that point, we had a climb. Yeah, so.
I know, like at state champs, we partnered with 148, and like they're taking a look at our robot, and they saw we're climbing directly on the chain. And we're like, oh yeah, we like copied you on. They're like, you're doing this horizontally, like you're pulling like not straight up and down. It's like, I mean, it tensions the chain. It's fine, probably. Like, so going into drafting a blog post and like a couple of tips and tricks.
Yeah, before that. So that's all right on the drafting blog post. So that's one of the things we get a lot is like, can our team or like we get the question of like, we're really thankful you do it. We don't know how you have enough time to do it. Part of that is just some of the we're going to go into is the efficiency of the system. Is it really it's ingrained into a lot of the process of what we're doing. So the actual blog post stuff don't take that much time. Like we'll go through exactly what we do. Basically, the team has a Google Doc. Everyone has access to it. Pictures get posted. We copy and paste the chief and we send it. Like they're pretty fast. Like we're not worried about perfect, like in any way. There's so many errors. Like the entire first time I was doing it, I'm super dyslexic. So if you ever read the original blog post there, it's just full of spelling errors and grammar errors. It's horrible. And I was like, all the students had edX access. I'm like, yeah, there's grammar. You have go fix all of my typos, please. But like if it wasn't going to be imperfect, it wasn't ever going to get done. And so that was just the goal, is just get it out there. No matter what your state of your team is, no matter what you're doing, the 3,500 teams in FRC, the problem you solved last night is the problem someone else is having today. And if you post it and solve it, that makes that chief search so much easier for them. They don't have to run their head against their keyboard trying to figure out what it is. They've solved it. And so everyone is having those same problems, no matter what the state of your team is. If it's some weird thing with the Kitbot, there's hundreds of teams building the Kitbot. So if you've solved it, you can help solve it for somebody else.
Yeah, we posted this year a how to write the build blog thread. Partially because of annoyance when like searching through other threads, and partially because we thought it would be like just useful to post like our workflow. And so going down the list, like write everything. Like writing takes time. Writing is annoying. So if you just like do like write your thought and then post a picture, that's good enough. Like using Grammarly and using like I guess like even generative AI to just write your thoughts and just have it posted out. Like there's really not like time isn't really an excuse anymore with like AI and whatnot. To make making the process simple is also like very crucial to having a successful build blog. The process being just a Google Doc that is 70 something pages long and just people being able to edit it makes it so easy to just have somebody be like, oh, I want to add this to the build. Can you add this to the build blog? Isn't really a conversation. It's like, oh, just go on the website and change it. Like it's super simple. It also like the processes of like everybody taking pictures is insane for documentation purposes, or like looking at potential failure points, because people are so used to taking pictures of the robot and not having like a stigma that, oh, we need to keep it private or whatever. It makes it so that there's a lot more accountability and a lot more documentation for our own end.
A lot of the blog posts and stuff are all things you're already doing within your team. So a lot of the communication is things that you're already sending out. It's already whatever your daily recaps. It's somebody, your student leads posting what they finished on a prototype or whatever. It's already the videos. It's already that stuff that's in your Slack or whatever communication platform you use. And we just clean it up a little bit and make it public. Like it's so much of it isn't a ton more work. It's just constantly being like, oh, what is even remotely potentially useful for other teams to see.
Going into clickbait, the more people that see your blog, the more feedback you might get. And so getting views is good. And so like, for example, you can see in the bottom left, like the robot on its side. That's like the only frame that makes it look like a robot is dead in that video. But like choosing frames like that or having like titles and stuff, getting people to click on links helps people look at it and be like, what did they do? And it's like, oh no, it's normal. But then they'll still comment on it, which is good.
Also, the jokes just make it fun for us. So it keeps us posting.
And then templates. The templates make it so easy to like just post. Like we do the slides on Tuesdays anyways, like for the design recaps for just our internal like design reviews and keeping everybody on the same page. So doing things like that you're already doing anyway, and just literally screenshotting, putting it in Chief, and hitting post are the easiest ways to post things. Like you don't have to post every day at all. Like it can be what you already do within the team for your weekly recaps and whatnot. Like all of these are things that are very useful still.
Yeah, and that even the weekly recap thing, we're like, oh, we don't have time to do that. It's scheduled on Discord. We do the Discord video call at 8 p.m. every Tuesday. The slides are probably blank at 7:40 every Tuesday, and the student leads jump in the 15 to 20 minutes, get all the photos, get all the stuff. We run our little 30, 45-minute talk, copy paste slides, done. We're out in an hour. And it's still, a lot of those slides are the things that kind of keep up with what's happening and how the robot works and are super beneficial to the community, but really don't take that much time.
And then like even for event recaps and whatnot, like going through and doing like our fixes and failures stuff. Like this season, we could go through and see like, oh, what exactly did fail at Belton when we're in a week 4? Because like those things just get forgotten, and making sure those things are part of your checklist and documenting everything is also gives you like accountability for not having the same mistake twice.
Yeah. And that's another one that's just in our Slack. So like during events, we just have a Slack channel for things where the robot breaks. So then afterwards, we're able to just go through that Slack channel, copy and paste it out, and put it in the build blog. So it's all stuff that's pretty much already happening as part of our internal processes. They're just able to be published.
And then taking pictures of everything. Like even if you decide to not do a build blog or post on Chief, it's still extremely useful to just be able to scroll through your camera roll and have like hundreds of pictures of a note hitting a tennis ball, just over and over and over again. And having like that like track progress through your camera roll is pretty cool.
And have a good place to upload those photos too.
Yes.
SmugMug is amazing. We just incentivize students every day, upload your photos, take photos, all of it. Then we all have access, even if we're not the ones taking the photo.
And after you do all of that, you can profit. So any questions? Go ahead.
Who posts is it a student who manages the blog post?
Good question. So most years, I'm in charge of it, but then depending on how the students want to do it, we normally have 1 or 2 who are also pretty active on like kind of the editing, but almost all of it is copy and pasted either from student stuff they posted in Slack or things that they're posting directly on that Word document. But we normally have at least a student pretty active. Last year, our pilot was posting a lot of them. Yeah, it just depends on if the students want to have a chief profile and want to do that sort of thing. Otherwise, it's normally one of us who actively posts it. So we can keep track and are easier to get to DMs and stuff because you can DM us. Not students.
It probably isn't a problem for you guys because you guys have been doing this for so long. But how would you recommend if you're on a team who doesn't have this culture of like relentlessly documenting everything and also posting about it? How would you recommend building that culture among the students? Some who often have problems even getting them to brag about what they've done. Like you've done so many cool things, like show other people this. Like how do you start building that culture?
Yeah, so the first part is just, it's totally fine for you to be the person that does it, right? The first few years of build blogs were basically just me with begging students to send me pictures because we didn't have the SmugBugs and stuff yet. The technology just wasn't there. We like had Flickr albums or whatever we were doing back then. Yeah, it's totally fine for the mentor to be the one logging it, like whatever, however you can use the tool to help internally. Like if you're sending out weekly emails to your team anyway, if you're doing those things that are over communicating, whatever you need to be doing for your internal team communications, that sort of stuff getting published is really all it needs to be. Like you don't really need to be walls of text. Like some of my older stuff was definitely a little bit more philosophical, like when I was just on the keyboard deciding everyone needed to hear my opinions. But most of the time for the actual robot stuff, photos, videos, are things that a lot of times you're already doing because you just need to video the prototype so you have it again for something. Yeah, a lot of times it's just, oh, that was really cool. And I whip out my phone and film it, whatever it is. Like they don't need to be high quality. They don't need to be anything super fancy. So as long as you're doing and you set that example, the students kind of follow and realize how cool it is. Because we have so many examples of just them knowing that, yeah, this other teams are looking at it. And we get that same feedback in the last 24 hours, just meeting some of you and new people have been like, hey, thank you for build blog. We did this year. We did whatever. And the students get that too at events where the students watch and they're like, yeah, we followed along. We saw what you were doing. That was really helpful. And that as soon as you get that a little bit of that positive feedback, it goes really fast the next few seasons.
So the students have kind of just, as it's grown as a thing that your team does,
Yeah.
the students have kind of just taken it and run with it.
Yeah, because they understand. Like we early on when they were getting stopped at champs by like coaches that they had seen and admired, they're like and getting thanked. They're like, oh, this is really important. We should definitely be keep doing this. So.
There isn't like a built-in one. Like we don't have we don't really have a form in season where people fill out and give us feedback. We had a Google form that I posted a week ago just for the purpose of this presentation, but like 5 people filled that out. But in general, it's through like conversations, through DMs, through responses on the thread. Like there's any way you get in contact with us is fine. Like we'll figure it out.
Yeah, so the chief thread is the easiest way to post things for just the general public. A lot of these same ones, if there's something cool. Most of us are in other community group chats and things, our Texas Mentor Slack and other ones that are just ones with friends. So we'll post in there things and you get the feedback directly from people you know a little bit better or in smaller groups. But yeah, a lot of times it's just people emailing our team or my email account. A lot of times it is just later on feedback where it doesn't actually happen at the event, but it happens later because somebody just or not during the season, but it happens at an event where somebody walks up and talks to us about it. Some of it we never really know if they actually use the build blog or not, but it's like the robot looks exactly the same and they did something cool. So then we're still able to pull things back from it just because we kind of set the standard of where some robots of that year went. For good or bad. Some years our robot's not that good, and then we're sad other people built all of them. But yeah, you definitely, that's one of the weirder ones of the build blog is when you're like, somebody's building a version of something that you iterated away from pretty quickly. You're like, that was really bad. And then you're like, they get to an event and you're like, you're using that version? Oh no. Like, I'm glad it worked for you, but how?
Like the biggest thing is just using what you already have, I think is the biggest thing. Like things that you're already used to, that your students are used to, whether that be if you do like a weekly recap. I personally really like the design slides because they're very easy to do and very easy to have multiple people do at the same time. So you just have like your student design leads for each subsystem, spend 5 minutes on a slide, and in 5 minutes you have an entire slideshow done.
I'm just a little curious, so we've gone through the school rules have adjusted, and the students are not allowed to post anything on behalf of any organization in the school. They all have to be controlled by a teacher. So I'm curious if you see the information that goes out, or how big of a job that would be, because we have to do that, or we can't do it.
Yeah. That's so like I said, it all goes into that Google Doc first. And so none of the students are posting to the blog without running it by the coaches first. And even most of the time when we're replying to things, we normally send it through our internal Slack to check with the students too, to be like, hey, we're about to say something about this mechanism. Is that actually what you did? Like, we weren't there. Or we didn't see it. You did the work. And so, yeah, so it's always communicating in whatever the communication platform that you use, however you do it, email, whatever it is. And so the team normally kind of rolls through it and checks it. I'll send stuff if I type something. I'm like, hey, make sure there's no typos anymore. People actually read these. And so normally there's multiple eyes on it relatively quickly. Like none of them are very long. Most of it's photo and video as much as we can. Because that's mostly what people actually want to see is how the robot's actually doing stuff or how we actually solve the problems for the game.
Going back and forth with another team.
Yeah, so our information isn't like purposefully delayed 24 hours. That's just like the way it kind of like goes. It's not like we have like a period of time where like, okay, this happened like at 3 p.m. on Saturday. We can't post it till 3 p.m. on Sunday. It's more like it'll like get posted on photos and we'll talk about it in the afternoon. Then we'll draft the blog post and it doesn't get posted till the morning. And so it's just the nature of like the process. Like we don't just do something and then take a break and then immediately write the blog post. We just like go through an entire day's worth of build season and then recollect our thoughts, look back at how the day went and then write the blog post. So sometimes it's not as much as 24 hours. Sometimes it could be things we did previously that day. But just in general, like there is a break between when we do something and then when we post it. And then as we're posting it, we're still thinking about it. So like we're on to the next thing idea.
Yeah. And in general, we're not everything that the team does is posted immediately. Like there's some things where like, this is like, we don't know if this actually works yet. We're in the middle of it. Like we'll wait until we have a little bit more video. We wait until we have a little bit more whatever. And even there's some stuff that we do like, hey, let's hold on to this for a little bit. We don't necessarily need everyone talking about this thing yet. We don't know if it's even legal. We're waiting for a Q&A response. We're waiting for something, whatever it is. But the default is that whatever we're making is going to be public unless we have a discussion or a reason why it makes sense for the team to keep it private. Similarly, we don't post every day. Our goal during the season is at least to try to be consistent. So we try not to go 48 hours without an update during actual build that like first 6 weeks. That normally doesn't happen. Normally especially back when I was doing a lot more of it on my own, there would start to be like, oh, we're getting to the point where like, the robot has to really work, but we're through all the prototyping and design stuff. And so then it got a little there's less interesting updates when it's just like, oh yeah, we're just error checking and figuring out how to get the robot running.
In the daily to 48-hour goal that we've set, that's by no means something that you have to do. Even if it's just a weekly recap of the stuff that you've done, just the design slides and maybe some extra words, that's still super helpful to the community and potentially to your team as well.
How often do you guys have meetings during the week? 'Cause I see you guys.
So yeah, this started, the history of this briefly is in like 2011 when I joined the team. It was kind of open-ended. Like I said, the teachers pretty quickly backed out and were like, hey, we're not really involved. And so I kind of asked the students, I was like, hey, when do you guys want to meet? Like, I'll be here whenever you want to be. I don't got anything else to do. And they're like, we'll be here every day. And I was like, okay. And then basically now from kickoff to the end of champs, someone is doing something for our robot every day of the week. 7 days a week for the most part. Like every once in a while, there'll be some time when the lab actually has to be closed if we're all at an event or something, but it's pretty rare that we're not having something going on for at least some chunk of time. But we have no required meetings. So none of the students are there every day, not any individual one. Most of them will hit 4 to 5 days a week. But then that lets them, for our team, it lets us be super flexible. So we have students that are in every sport and every other activity, choir, band, whatever. And they're able to like figure out their time to come after anything. So we're there 5 to 6 hours a day most of the time.
You had suggested a photo system that you upload to, but where do you put the photos before they go public? Because you just said have everybody dump them.
Most of the time, those are fine just to go fully public. They're all just robot photos. We've never had an issue of somebody uploading something that wasn't fine. But
SmugMug also allows you to do unlisted and private libraries. So
like SmugMug is what we use.
Yeah.
SmugMug's the library we use, but that's fully public too. So anybody can go through and look at all the ones, not even just the ones that we post in the build blog, because there's hundreds and hundreds of photos. Thanks a lot to Sue-Ann, especially for the event ones. But yeah, there's tons and tons of photos and things that you can sit there and watch. I don't know if we uploaded all the tennis ball videos, but yeah, so there's just videos of us shooting a note at the tennis ball and a goal over and over and over again if you really want to be bored.
Or the autos, or yeah. And like when you have 100,000 pictures, it's not like people can like scrape through everything and figure out like the worst possible picture. It's just a quantity of pictures that is just large enough to not matter as much.
Can you talk more about your ad event process? You mentioned a Slack channel for when the rollout breaks. What other Slack channels or other?
Okay, so internal community, like we're not perfect at this by any means, and this changes year to year depending on who's doing what in personnel. But yeah, so that Slack channel is robot reports, and so basically, anytime something maintenance happens or anything else, it goes into Slack so that everyone on the team knows, hey, this is broken, or this was fixed, or this is still a problem. So a lot of times we try to have the drive team posting after every match what is still broken. So just like it highlights like, hey, this is still not functioning correctly. I hit this button and it jammed once and now we need to figure it out. And so sometimes there are things that, oh, we can't fix that in an event, but it still gets posted after every match, ideally, not always, we're supposed to. So we know it's a problem and then we can fix it for the next event or fix it whenever we have time. Because like things have to bubble up the priority list, right? We all only have so much time in the pit. The other stuff is the event channel is all of our like event logistics stuff. So that's just, hey, food's here, go eat. And then strategy is all of the pre-match and post-match strategy reports from the strategy students, sending them to myself and our drive coach and the drive team to make sure we're ready to do alliance strategy talks and everything. So they're sending us down what we should be getting the alliance to do. What else is going on other than like random that has hydration memes and everything else in it that everyone else's random Slack has? Whatever else is going on. Are there any other
logistics? There was the drivers channel towards the end, which should probably be renamed to tactics if we keep it.
You can talk. I don't remember what that was.
At Champs, we made a new channel that we called Drivers. Probably, if we keep it, going to rename it to Tactics, which the same way that we do robot reports is for kind of reporting on kind of mechanical failures. Tactics would be for reporting on any of our tactical failures or successes within that match. What we look to improve, basically what we took from that match and doing our match review post-match.
Is it a new channel every event, or you just use the same form?
No, they're all just the same channel. Yeah, we're also like we're crazy. We don't even have paid Slack, so like every 90 days it just gets ripped out. So whatever. It's fine. No, the only thing of these that we've talked about, SmugMug we pay for. It's like $100 a year to have unlimited photo storage. That just works. That's the only one we pay for. At some point we'll have Slack under a nonprofit or something. We just keep not doing it.
What do you like open lines like during competition? Like you guys release your scouting data and stuff like that. You guys just do that immediately, or is that something that just
I know like it was specifically started because we were annoyed that like people didn't have good scouting data, and it was like, oh, we just have good scouting data. We're just gonna post it and let you use our data. And so it's one of those things that like we didn't start by posting everything. We just posted the raw data kind of like to validate. Because I know like even like behind the scenes, sometimes you can ask like to get from specific teams certain data anyways. And so like the validation at the high level already happens when you're looking at other people's data. And so kind of opening that up and raising the floor and being like, yeah, everybody can use our data kind of helps out a lot of teams that either don't have the students to scout. And so it really helps a lot more on the lower end, but it still does help validate even at the higher end where you already do have scouts and whatnot.
Part of that is also just the philosophical aspect of it is FRC events are more fun when all the teams are better. Like it is just more fun to compete against teams who are playing better. It's more fun to compete against teams who are picking better alliances in the playoffs. It's more fun when everyone is playing at a higher level. Not all the time. Everyone's that's from a conversation. But so ideally we can, if like not everyone has the resources to be able to have 6 students watching every match and clicking the buttons and validating and making sure it's as accurate as possible, which is not always that accurate. But by sharing it, we can at least get them to have an idea of what the goal of the data is, and they're able to use it and make a slightly better pick list and things. Yes, I think I'm pretty sure that was a student initiative back in like 2019 is when we first started publishing it. I think it was Ethan, right? Yeah. And he was like, yeah, we're doing all this work. We should make sure we're sharing it too. I'm like, yeah, feel free. Like, get it clean enough to do it. Most of the time before that, it was just the data was so messy. And like, by the time we're at our scouting meeting, it was midnight before the data made any sense to anybody. And so it wasn't all that useful to post. But now we've gotten that process down a lot easier so we can get it out a little bit earlier.
Yeah, and the timeline for that posting that is we get back to the hotel, and as we're prepping dinner, I'll be on like the spreadsheet, just deleting names, deleting comments, and just posting
with the other strategy leads, the students. Yeah.
Along the line with the scouting data, what you work with any of those smaller teams that have to scout with you, or do you do all of it internal?
Yeah, it's all internal. It's hard enough to get our own students trained and caring enough about strategy to make sure they're watching the match and trying to be as good as possible. Anytime we've tried to pull somebody else in mid-event, there's no way to get it good enough to where we can trust that it happens and can can coach and correct them, because if it's a student on another team, it's much harder to be like, hey, you did this super wrong. Where I can tell our own kids, be better.
But I mean, having that feedback from you guys.
We normally try not to post comments, but maybe we did. Okay, yeah, we try to clean it up as much as we can, or at least we always clean up we also try to make sure the students know that they may get posted, so don't be that aggressive in the scouting data. But yeah, we try to at least be little nice about it. Our team is, the term I've been using is the most like loosey-goosey team ever. There's no real roles in general for the students. Like we have in build season, there are about 5 mechanism leads. Sometimes they'll team up, so there'll be like 6 or 7, but there's like 5 mechanisms. And then there'll be 3 to 4, a couple more on programming. And then basically everyone else they'll have like a little bit of things they're focusing on and stuff, but everyone's allowed to be doing a little bit of everything. And it's whatever the projects are for that day, it's all hands on deck for who's there working on whatever it is. So yeah, there's students who know that they're just interested in, and like our main leaders are normally the ones helping get out the build blog and stuff, just because they know the leaders before them did it and they're working through it. So like we had our seniors graduate, and so the last event recaps and stuff were done by the rising seniors and things. They stepped up and did more of it this year than they had been doing last year when the other seniors were doing it before. Chuck.
My team is rather small, and the students on my team want to do everything themselves. They refuse to they feel like they're copying if they do it. It's that don't copy others work in school. Do you have any advice on how we can encourage students to not beat their head against the wall and keep making mistakes? You're pretty done it for me, Alex, and I can say, look what happened. Learn their mistakes, iterate something of your own, but don't go around saying.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that once the culture's already been established. Yeah, so a lot of that is just early on through the team. Is the culture's always been we solve the problems that we need to find the solution for. If a solution already exists, we're gonna do it. So a lot of our fall, and like we'll talk about this in our maximizing the first week of build season presentation later today. But a ton of that is just looking back at past robots and things. Like the goal kind of through our fall is to be like, if I say 118 2012, the students ideally have a vision of that robot, and we can start pointing out mechanisms, and we can know kind of what those are. So we use tons of past examples of robots. We go through and look deep dive people's CAD together as a team, and so we're using people's resources and things from previous seasons constantly on the team. So we're taking from everybody else, because if a problem's already solved, it's a lot less effort for us. So our goal is to only solve the problems that we don't already have a solution for. We can't find one that already exists.
I was going to respond to that just because I had the same type of thing occur with my team, but I encourage them to more copy the idea of what they're doing more than, I mean, you aren't, like you said, you're never going to be better than them by copying their CAD. I mean, but sometimes copying the idea of how they're doing something and then letting them develop the design for it, for them when we had issues doing that. I mean, they're not just Xeroxing what they have. Not that everything that they have isn't perfect.
No, and Emilio touched on that. Yeah, all of the robots that we say like copied us, they're completely different robots, right? They all built them to their resources, their spec. They were like, this is silly. Why would you do it this way? We're doing it the better way. And so they're all different robots by far, and you have to build it to your resource and understand your resources and how to maximize them for your team.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to that. We've had this conversation, but the thing I tell our students is fundamental to engineering that we learn about solutions to common problems. We figure out how to apply them to our specific situation. So I agree, you don't have to live directly, but the idea that you're going to explicitly not learn from somebody else is like that's not how engineering works, right? We should be learning from each other.
Yeah, and nobody in here is designing their own screw threads. We're all building things on the backs of many, many, many engineers well long before us.
Oh yeah. So like this year or ever? So in 2022, another alumni and I kind of sat down like on a Friday night, like very late, like way too late, and just wrote down like what are the like dumbest things we could do and that aren't like that are illegal, like
that are legal, like be clever but not necessarily all that necessary parts of the game.
And so through that, we kind of like cooked up some sauce, so to say. So we had a sauce build blog. And so we had a couple of like weird Auton things, but my favorite one was like the Project Overtime, which was like a post-match climb that took advantage that game rules didn't apply after the match ended, but the score like for climbing was calculated 5 seconds after the match ended, so you could just extend up and like pull down.
HQ rightfully disallowed it in the Q&A, a little late, but they rightfully disallowed it in the Q&A later.
But I think that was my favorite thing to work on just because it was so ridiculous. But other than that, like all the like event recaps are fun to write because you're just looking back and doing just the regular stuff.
Yeah, a lot of it's also just the series of prototypes and stuff as other people are following along and you start getting those comments. Any of our climb prototypes from this year in 2022 and stuff, people are following along with the progress pretty regularly and how those are working and stuff. So those are fun to get the community and a lot more people talking about it and things.
Perfect. I think we're done.